Redline logbook here for D-Gray Man's General Yeegar Falls arc. We start off in a medical room where a man named Bookman, no other name, just Bookman, is examining Alan's eye. He points out that Alan's crushed eye is already regenerating, and so there's no need for his acupuncture. As long as he leaves it alone, it should be back to normal in 3 or 4 days. After he's done examining the eye, Bookman then properly introduces himself and Robbie as basically his student, but it's clear Bookman is extremely secretive and he chooses not to explain any further. Alan then goes check on Kamui to see how he's doing. He's once again worked himself to the point where he passed out in a pile of his files, and Alan can't wake him up. Well, that is until he tells him that Lena Lee is getting married. Alan points out that Lena Lee herself is still unconscious and hasn't been able to wake up. But once again, Kamui is trusting in Bookman and his acupuncture treatment, and so he has faith that Lena Lee is going to wake up soon. Which makes Alan realize, so you're not here for Lena Lee, you're still here about the Noah. And before Kamui has a chance to answer, that's when Robbie pops up out of a stack of the files and says, yeah, he's here to ask questions about the Noah. Robbie explains the Noah are a family that appear during the crossroads of history. They're never written down in actual history books, but they are recorded by the Bookman, because the Bookman keep track of the unrecorded history. And before he can continue his story about the Noah and the Millennium Earl, that's when Bookman immediately kicks him in the face and then yells at him for revealing the Bookman's secrets, because only the Bookman is allowed to do that. Robbie's argument is, I'm going to be the Bookman soon because you're going to die, old man. And it just basically becomes an argument between teacher and student. Bookman then tells Alan he should just rest and wait until Lena Lee wakes up, because nothing can be done until then. And then he immediately kicks out both him and Robbie so he can talk with Kamui about the Millennium Earl and the Noah. Alan and Robbie start to talk, and Alan learns that Kamui's first name is actually Yu, so that's interesting. That means Kamui is their surname, which Lena Lee is Lena Lee Kamui then. Well, Kamui Lena Lee because they're Chinese. Robbie points out that things are about to get big because now the Noah have appeared. That means the Millennium Earl's plan is about to begin. A war is about to happen. Alan is disgusted by this, saying that he became an exorcist who free Akuma. He did not do it to kill humans, because the Noah are still human after all. Alan gets super pissed off about this conversation and just decides to huff off and go on a walk. As he's walking, he just goes through a crowd of people and he begins to feel afraid. Alan is unsure why he's afraid. He's never felt this kind of fear before. It doesn't make sense to him. And then he slowly begins to realize it's because he's in a crowd of people and he can't tell which one's an Akuma. His cursed eye is crushed, and so every human being around him could be an Akuma. He just doesn't know. As he walks through the crowd, he becomes more and more afraid, and he actually starts to view people as monsters, ready for attacking him. He feels a sense of fear for a second, turns around, which was a mistake because right behind him, there's a small child being carried by her parent, and it's an Akuma. Luckily for Alan, before he'd shot point-blank range in the head, that's when Robbie appears with a giant hammer crushing the Akuma. So the Bookman finally finishes his story about the Noah that he knows, and Kamui is really grateful, apologized for making him talk as much as he did, but the Bookman's like, no, it's my job, it's fine. But you got it tough, huh? The way things are going now? And Kamui's response is, no, I got an easy compared to the Exorcist. He feels guilty about constantly sending the Exorcist go off and fight while he just stays back in the lab. But the Bookman points out that the only thing equal in war is suffering. That's just how it goes. Bookman then senses something, tells Kamui to stay back. When he steps out the door, he finds 2 blood slats and the remaining clothes of the men that were guarding the door. Because when an Akuma kills someone, they turn to dust. There are 5 shadows covering him, so that means he's got at least 5 opponents he's going to have to fight on his own. On the other hand, back where Alan is, of course Robbie was able to kill that Akuma that was about to kill Alan, but he did it in a crowd of people, and so now the entire crowd's freaking out, screaming that there's a murderer, calling for the police. Then Robbie has to quickly dodge out of the way as a giant pile of scrap metal crashes down right where he was standing, and the one who threw it was an Akuma currently holding another scrap metal ball thing with a puppet hand holding a baseball bat. Akumas are fucking weird, man. Puppet arm with the bat, then is able to smack the second scrap ball at Robbie and Al again, but Robbie just grows his hammer and smashes the scrap ball. Robbie attacks the Akuma with his hammer. It runs away, and all Robbie does is just smash the building. Robbie does not care because apparently the Black Order pays for all damages that they cause, which is just a standard of I don't give a shit that should not be allowed. Like, you should care about some collateral damage, my friend. That's when a cop runs up screaming that they're under arrest for murder. Alan tries to explain the situation, but Robbie then immediately points his hammer at the cop, telling him to stay back. The cop then transforms into an Akuma, fires off its guns. Alan and Robbie are able to block it with their innocence, and they both are able to then run away to a train yard. Robbie complains that Alan's reaction time is too slow. He should immediately out his anti-Akuma weapon. Alan then asks Robbie how he knew that cop was an Akuma, and Robbie's response was, I didn't. I'm suspicious of everyone. Someone that I knew yesterday could have been turned into an Akuma today. I would never know. He tells Alan that his eye of his is so convenient because him and the rest of the exorcists, they just gotta treat every human being as one of the Earl's minions. They then get surrounded on the train station and they get attacked by Akuma on all sides. Alan is somewhat hurt by the statement, but understands that he is different from the other exorcists in the way they think compared to him. One of the Akuma then takes a woman hostage. She starts begging for help while it orders Alan to basically stand still. And for the first time, Alan finally understands what Cross was telling him years ago, because we go to a flashback where Alan asks Cross, why do you wear this coat? Doesn't it make you a target? And Cross says, of course it does. That's the point. We don't have a cursed eye, so the only way we are able to hunt an enemy that's invisible is if that enemy is constantly going after us. Anyone who willingly walks up to us is obviously should be treated as an Akuma, because that is the most suspicious thing ever, to have a random person walk up and say hi to you. And so this really begins to affect Alan. He really begins to empathize and understand what the other exorcists have been going through, because this is something that he's never experienced. He's had the cursed eye this entire time. Alan then shoots the Akuma holding the woman hostage. She then collapses. He runs over her to see if she's okay. She starts to thank him. Her head then transforms into a gun because she's an Akuma. But before she has a chance to kill Alan, he blasts her with his weapon because Alan finally understands everyone is now an Akuma. When the fighting is all done, the entire train yard is completely destroyed. Both Alan and Robbie are just laid out tired. They then compare notes on who killed more Akuma. It was Robbie who killed 37 to Alan's 30. Alan's like, are you sure about that? And Robbie's like, yeah, I remember everything I see and hear. There's over 70 Akuma total, and so Robbie says it was a simple attack of overwhelming numbers of level 1s. Most likely, they were after both Alan and Lena Lee because they were injured, and this is the best chance for them to kill a couple exorcists. Alan then realizes that means Lena Lee is in danger then. Robbie doesn't seem so concerned because he knows Bookman is there, but he says, okay, let's just go over to see how they are. Alan then tries to move, but his arm gets all hurt again, and he's like, I wish I had an Akuma weapon like yours, and I wasn't just part of my body, because that means whenever Alan gets hurt, his Akuma weapon gets damaged, and using it more just makes it even worse, so kinda sucks to be a Paramecia type, at least in that regard. Robbie then puts his hammer head down on the ground and tells Alan to grab the pole, and he says, hammer, jump, and the hammer launches both of them through the sky as they're holding onto it. They're literally rocketing straight to the hospital in a single bound. As you can imagine, Alan freaks the fuck out because Robbie didn't even tell him what was going to happen. He just launched the two of them. Speaking of the hospital, we're back in it. All the Akuma are dead except for one, who is a second Akuma with a stuffed animal arm with a bat. Yeah, I know. It's currently broken and battered because Bookman beat the hell out of it, and it's basically on the verge of death, and Bookman is currently trying to force questions out of it. At the same time, Kamui is carrying the body of Lena Lee, who is still unconscious, and the broken and battered Akuma has a message that the 1,000-year prologue has finally ended. It's time for the show, and the exorcists will be the performers on the Earl's stage. Now, this is a surprise that Bookman and Kamui did not see coming. The real head of the Akuma is, in fact, the arm with the bat. It's not the body. And so, the arm head thing is able to rip itself off at high speeds and launch towards Kamui, and it's about to actually rip his face clean off. It even says easy kill. And right before Kamui dies, Lena Lee wakes up and kills the Akuma. Both Kamui and Bookman are both happy now that Lena Lee is awake, but they can't really enjoy this because immediately after that, Alan and Robbie just smash through the hospital window. Bookman immediately realizes what Robbie just did again, and just starts to scold the shit out of both of them for doing something so stupid and causing so much unnecessary property damage. But the most unluckiest part is that they actually landed and crashed into Bookman himself. And so when he stands up, he's actually holding Alan up with his head, and he just looks like a demon himself. We have a little time skip where they're now all traveling in a carriage together. Bookman forced both Robbie and Alan to sit on their knees. Okay, that's already painful, but to do that in a moving carriage while you rock down on every single bump, it would not surprise me if their legs are completely numb at this point. But anyway, now that Lena Lee is awake and the entire team has been assembled, Kamui then can finally explain what the mission is. A couple weeks ago, a general was killed, General Yeegar. The general was the oldest of them all, but he still fought on the front lines. He was discovered in Belgium, crucified backwards, with the words God Hunt carved into his back. And what do they mean by God Hunt? They mean going after the innocents. Yeah, and the reason why they know this is because he wasn't dead. Yeah, he was crucified and left there to die. And when he was found, he was patched up the best they could, but they couldn't save him. To the moment he died, he continued to sing a nursery rhyme. The Millennium Count is searching for the heart. It wasn't me. Next time, who will it be? Each general's job, which we've been told about this before, is to find people who are compatible with innocence. As such, the generals carry around innocents that haven't been claimed yet. General Yeegar had 8 with him, plus his own. which means 9 pieces of innocence has already been destroyed. As for the nursery rhyme, it's broken down. The Millennium Count is the Millennium Earl. It's his nickname that the Noah use. For some reason, the Noah call him that instead of the Earl. And it's not like the extras came up with the name Millennium Earl and they're just getting it wrong, because the Akuma call him the Millennium Earl. It's only the Noah that call him the Count. As for the Precious Heart, it's one of the 109 pieces of innocence that they're all looking for. The heart is basically the source of all innocence. If the enemy gets their hands on the heart, they will have the ability to turn off all other innocence, winning the war. But on the other hand, the Black Order believes if they get their hands on the heart, they would be able to win the war. Basically, it's the ultimate weapon. The only problem is no one knows where it is. In the entire history of the Black Order, no one has ever been able to identify the heart. In fact, the Black Order is unsure if they already have the heart or not, because it could be used by one of their exes. It could be currently being held in the Black Order as an unused piece of innocence. They don't know. All they know is that this heart is out there and they need to find it. Now, why was General Yeegar targeted? Well, because he's a general. The ongoing assumption by the Noah and the Earl is that anyone who has the heart must be a very powerful exorcist, and so they figured it's probably one of the generals who has it. Therefore, if they kill the generals and destroy their innocence, they'll be destroying the heart and destroying all of innocence. And so exorcists from all over are being brought in to protect the remaining 4 generals, and 4 of them have been selected to guard General Cross. That's when we jump over to Kanda, who is currently dismantling an Akuma. The Akuma then starts laughing at him, saying that them trying to protect the generals is pointless. All of the Noah and an army of Akuma are on their way to kill all 4 remaining generals, and there's nothing they can do about it. Kanda's response is just to kill the Akuma. Kanda is currently with 2 other exorcists, and they're all discussing how they just can't catch up to General Theodore. No matter how many times they enter a town, they hear that he was there, but then he left. And the worst part is that they keep getting attacked by Akuma that slow them down, which is the whole point, obviously. They're obviously targeting the general, and they're trying to keep his bodyguards away from him. But Kanda's actually irritated because apparently this guy was his mentor. In fact, General Theodore was all of their mentors, which is the whole reason why this 3-man squad was put together. Basically, it's the former students of the generals going to protect the generals. When we finally go back to Alan's group, it's been a few days and they've been traveling together. Alan has apparently been having trouble sleeping because anytime he does, he dreams of General Cross, and well, that's a nightmare for him. Now, the reason why protecting the generals is so hard and why everyone is trying to search for them is the simple fact that Kamui doesn't give direct orders to any of the generals. They are given their orders from the commander-in-chief. Not just that, but their orders are very generic, and they basically have free reign to do what they want. As such, the generals basically just travel the world, killing Akuma, finding people who are compatible with the innocents, so on and so forth. But they have the decency to at least check in once a month, so they know where a general location of the generals are. Well, except for Cross. Cross hasn't reported in for 4 years, and so the going assumption is either 1, he's dead, or 2, he's ignoring orders and just playing around. And there's literally no way for the Black Order to confirm either theory. That is until Alan showed up, who was the apprentice of the general for 3 whole years. As Conway gets really excited, Alan's like, whoa, I don't know where he is. I don't know anything about him other than the fact that we just moved around a lot. I couldn't help you at all. But Conway points out, oh, well, you don't have to worry about it because General Cross was an amazing scientist. And one of the things he was great at doing was making golems, like Tincampy. And since Tincampy is his golem, Tincampy can actually point in the direction of Cross. And then Conway then goes overdrive insane because now that he has Tincampy and Alan, who knows Cross's behavior and patterns, they will be able to track down and find the general after 4 long years. After washing the marker off his face, Alan then examined his eye and realized it doesn't really hurt anymore, which means it's very close to fully healing. After leaving the bathroom, Lena Lee is standing there. He asks her what's up, and she just angrily says nothing and stomps off. Now that everyone is fully awake and got their bearings, they decide to come together to talk about where to find Cross. Currently, they're heading towards the eastern part of Germany, and yet Tincampy is still pointing east. The issue is that if Tincampy was close, he'd be able to give a more exact direction, but since he's not, he can only give a general direction of where Cross is, and he's east, and that's just it, east. This is concerning because they started off in England and they've been heading east this entire time, which means they are already across half of Europe and they're still going. Lindley is very confused on how they can even track him properly because he doesn't even make claims from the church. And that's when Robbie's like, wait, then how does he pay for things? And Alan's like, oh, he borrows the money. Yeah, so the way Cross does things is that he either borrows money that he never plans on paying off, or he lives off of the women he's currently sleeping with. And if that doesn't work, Alan is then forced to go out and gamble to make as much money as possible. That's when everyone realizes just how much of a scumbag General Cross actually is. At this moment, Alan and Lean Lee make eye contact again, but she immediately turns away, so Alan is really getting worried about Lean Lee being angry with him. Now, they're all in communications with other members of the Black Order, and so Bookman points out that everyone else has been attacked consistently by Akuma to slow them down from getting to their generals, which means the same thing is going to happen to them. So he's like, Alan, your eye, it needs to heal fast. Like, try working on that somehow, because we need that so we don't get slowed down, because we have the hardest task when it comes to finding our general. Alan understands, but his main concern is still Lena Lee, and so when they get a chance to be alone, he then goes up to her and he starts to apologize. Now that he experiences what it's like to not have his cursed eye, he understands what Lena Lee was thinking when she saved him and stopped him from exercising that Akuma that was going to explode. And so he really does now understand why what he did was so selfish. Lena Lee then stops him from picking his head up and says, I hadn't forgiven you yet. Keep bowing. And she used this moment to get everything off her chest. She explains because Alan is the only one who can see the souls of Akuma, he feels so obligated towards them, and he's willing to sacrifice his own life, and that's just wrong. He should trust his friends. He should allow them to fight alongside him. He shouldn't have to just try to carry the burden of the world with him. I mean, she understands why he does it, but it doesn't mean he should do it. She straight up tells him that she hates his left eye. The eye might protect him by telling him that Akuma are around, but at the same time, it makes him pity Akuma to the point where he's suicidal. He then thanks Lena Lee for helping him, and she responds, I will always help you. She finally has the nerve to forgive Alan for the way he behaved, and then stomps off again. Alan is a little confused if he's actually been forgiven or not, but he assumes he has. He then gets up to get on the train, but he then immediately is grabbed by some random dude who says, hey, is that a cross? And the next thing we know is that we're back on the train, it's moving, and Alan ain't on it. Alright, if you enjoyed this video, subscribe, give a thumbs up so you can enjoy more D. Gray Man anime things. Thank you, and have a great day.